All right, good day, or in this case, I should probably say good evening. You know, this week, News 5 is dedicated to special coverage on air and, of course, online, as we are right now, to ensure that kids can head safely back to school. That's the operative word, safely return to school this fall. So tonight, we're doing this. We're hosting a virtual town hall to speak with all of the decision makers, and you see four of them right there joining me right now. The people we trust to educate our kids, run the schools, and, of course, keep everyone as safe as possible. We have CMSD CEO Eric Gordon, Twinsburg Superintendent Kathy Powers, Parmer Superintendent Dr. Charles Smilek, and Willoughby Eastlake Superintendent Steve Thompson. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us. I know you're extremely busy, especially now trying to come up with the master plan. And we all know this is a very fluid situation. So it wouldn't come as a shock if we had to call an audible last minute and change something that we had in mind before. And I want to get started with you, Eric. You have decided to go with remote learning for the first 9 weeks, right? So how long did you play tug of war with that particular decision right there?
Well, we were planning for a hybrid experience, but we were watching 3 core sets of data. The first is the public health data. Cuyahoga County is a red county. The difference between red and purple is simply hospital capacity. What red means is we have very high infection and spread. And the Cleveland Board of Health data showed a 54% increase in COVID cases in just 21 days. The second data is how can we support families and educators? 67% of our families said that they were not at all comfortable or only slightly comfortable coming back to school. And then the third was the education opportunity. And we knew that in either case, students would be spending at least half of their time in a remote learning experience. And we believe that actually by starting remote and staying focused on it allows us to do one thing much better rather than asking educators to simultaneously try to do remote and also teach live classes. And so those 3 pieces of data came together. Our board fully supported it. We think the safest thing to do right now is to start in the first 9 weeks in a remote learning experience.
And we want to remind folks out there on Facebook to hit us up with your questions because I can see them on the screen, and I'm going to try to get to some of those because we know that you have plenty of them. Every parent does. And, you know, Eric, you were talking about the numbers. So, Kathy, I want to ask you. So 66% of families, in your case, actually voted to send their kids to school. And you're trying to make sure that you're accommodating everyone, but you want to make sure you're accommodating safety as well.
Right. So in June of 2020, we did a parent survey. At that point, 60% of our parents indicated that they would be comfortable sending their children back on campus for the coming school year. Over the last couple of weeks, we've asked parents to submit what we've been calling declaration surveys. And through those surveys, we now have 66% of our parents committing to our on-campus experience for the students in the coming school year.
And Dr. Smiley, are you relying on this color-coded plan that, you know, Eric had just alluded to when it comes to sending kids back to school in a few weeks?
We are, yes. Our plan will follow the Cuyahoga County alert level. When we are at red, we are in a hybrid environment where students will attend based on a green or white cohort they've been assigned to based on their last name, alphabetical order, splitting it A through K, obviously. And then if we are able in Cuyahoga County to control the virus and control the spread, then we anticipate that we will try to come back full go with students attending 5 days a week. But we wanted to, you know, we again honored survey data as well. Clearly, the plurality of our families wanted our students back in school. Our data from the spring showed that it was a struggle to educate students remotely, certainly from a motivation factor. We wanted to do everything we could to get them back in safely. And we feel that at this point, with Cuyahoga County being at the level 3, that a hybrid is the best option for us.
A hybrid is the best option. And Steve, I want to ask you the same question. Are you adhering to the similar color-coded plan there?
We are slightly differently. We are not using the hybrid model. We are in red. We will be fully remote in red or purple. That's the key difference. And And we surveyed our parents. The parents resoundingly said that the hybrid model didn't work for them. And then we were also concerned that although the hybrid model certainly does reduce the number of students you have in your class, which allows for further social distancing, which is why I'm sure other districts are making that decision. We were also concerned that that it puts our parents that are working in a difficult position still, because they have a couple of days a week where they have to figure out daycare. So now we're subjecting our students to both an environment at school and through their daycare, whatever those arrangements might be. So we've opted to, on red, we'll go fully remote, and obviously purple, we would stay in full remote.
Steve, what's that inbox looking like right now? I know you've been busy. What are parents asking you?
Yeah,
the frequently asked questions.
There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions. We gave the fully remote option available to our families. We have about 2,400 students that are going fully remote, which is roughly about 30% of our student body, which was similar to what our earlier surveys had indicated. We thought it'd be around 25%, moved up to about 30%. So we'll have roughly 100 teachers pulled out of buildings and teaching fully remote just to start the school year. Unless we're on red, of course, then all 100% of our families would be remote. The inbox keeps coming full, like I'm sure it is for Kathy and Eric and Charlie and every other superintendent in the state of Ohio. And I think we're in a position that almost no matter what decision you make, if Charlie goes to hybrid and we go remote and Eric's already remote, and whatever Kathy's plan calls for, there's going to be people that don't like Charlie's plan and want us to do what Charlie's doing. And there'll be people that will want Charlie to do what we're doing and vice versa. So I think we just have to do what we feel is best for our student population. We're certainly not getting a lot of guidance from anyone at this point. So those decisions rest with us. And I think we're doing the best we can with the information we have.
Oh, that's the phrase right there. We're doing the best we can. And I know a lot of parents are saying that. Kathy, we talked about it from like an up close and personal look at some of these specifics, but when we're looking at the big picture and the long-term impact of this, what is it that you would like parents to know? Because we're kind of going back and forth with a lot of this right now. And what we may have decided was best 2 weeks ago is not so much a week ago. And then we may go back to what we decided 2 weeks ago. What is it that you would like parents to know when it comes to the decision making?
Well, I think what we try to do, and I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues here too, is communication is so important because so much of this information continues to evolve and change. We are committed to ensuring that our families have the most up-to-date information that we know at that time. In our district, we held 2 virtual forums for parents and then loaded all those questions on the district website. So parents have a one-stop shop basically to find the information that they need. Our administrators are back from summer break. They are very responsive if parents have questions, if staff members have questions. And, you know, we can't discount the concerns that our staff members are having. We're asking them to operate in a total different environment. In our case, in order to make the 6-foot social distancing requirement happen, I've taken all of my buildings and realigned grade bands. So Twinsburg High School no longer houses my high school students. High school students are now at the middle school with 9th grade at my intermediate building. And the reason I had to do that is if I needed to get my students in preschool through grade 6 here every day, I needed the bigger capacity classrooms to get that job done. So it's all about communication, making sure that our parents receive the answers that they seek and make sure that we're as responsive as we can be. And I also ask our parents to have patience and grace with us too, because we are truly trying to make sure that our students and our staff have the most safe environment for the coming school year. But we continue to get guidance that changes, seems like the minute by minute change. And we're doing all that we can to stay on top of that.
Great. And I want to remind you all out there listening on the Facebook app, go ahead and hit us with the questions. I want to get to some of those This question looks like it is for Steve, because it says here from Peg Prawl on Facebook, how are the children going to social distance in elementary school and Willoughby Eastlake schools?
We've said we've had a virtual meeting with our community, and we've stated in our plan and on our virtual meeting that complete social distancing of 6 feet all day is not feasible. It is not practical. We'll do the very best we can. So, for example, we've moved out all non-essential furniture out of classrooms so we can distance those desks to the extent possible. And obviously, we have a reduced number, about 30% reduced number of students. So that will certainly help us in traffic areas, et cetera, et cetera. But there is most definitely a decision that parents had to make. And I recognize it's a difficult one, but there are some inherent risks to coming back to school. And so we were very honest and upfront about that. So we'll do the best we can to social distance, but we are masked K-12, and we'll keep those masks on students. Certainly when we're changing classes, when we're making movement, we'll allow them the opportunity to take the masks off when they're socially distanced the best we can in their classrooms. But clearly that question that person's asking, the most honest answer to them is they will not always be socially distanced.
I want to lob this question to each of you, because we know teachers, their superpower is their engagement, their ability to connect with students one-on-one, the hand on the shoulder, that pat on the back, the fist bump. We've seen the custom handshakes as students have walked into the classroom. We are now essentially having to strip them of that ability to try and connect with them. What type of feedback have you received from your teachers about that and wanting to make sure the kids don't backslide?
I mean, I'll jump in and start. Our teachers, and I'm sure it's true for all of my colleagues, were just incredibly resilient and innovative in the urgent shutdown we had last March, where we didn't even know it was coming, and have spent all summer thinking about how to do it even better. And I'll just give one example. We broadcast lessons on TV all summer long, all spring long. And I remember a teacher who was really frustrated because she had to keep retaping her lesson because she made a mistake. And I said to her, well, what would you have done in your classroom? And she said, oh, I would have just corrected it and gone on. And I said, well, do that. And she did. And so she was finding ways to create those virtual fist bumps, if you will, by, in that case, broadcasting her classroom off of her phone out to the TV station. So I would just say that it is a completely different environment for sure, but our teachers collectively have stepped up and really found ways to reach kids in new and innovative ways. Again, I even had a teacher who was teaching through Instagram because that was the way she could reach her kids. And so she did her lesson on Instagram. And so we all want to be back together. There's not one of us that doesn't. But it's not letting it stop our teachers from the relationships that they so desire with their kids.
You know, in all of our districts, I would say that we have positive behavior intervention supports, and that talks about ensuring that our school environments are positive places for students where they make positive choices. And one of the things that we looked at doing last year when we were under the school closure and moving into the next year is having morning meetings or class meetings as the day gets underway. We're all very concerned about social, emotional well-being of our students and staff members. So it'll be more important than ever before to build those positive relationships. Indeed, the teacher's not going to be able to pat the child on the back and give them a high five, but there are virtual hugs you can do. And there are other ways of reaching students in a positive sense so they feel comfortable in this new environment.
I would say that from our data in the spring, and both grade wise and also feedback wise, we recognized there was a clear differential between teachers who had a very clear meeting schedule, and Eric alluded to it. I mean, we the spring sort of hatched an experiment under very difficult situations, and our folks did as good of a job as they could, but some of the technological capacity lacked, just some of the ability to really work with your teacher-based teams and figure out how we're best going to approach this was a challenge. And so we have set a schedule for our virtual learning in terms of if we have to go fully virtual, but certainly we also have a virtual option in which there will be a schedule for students to follow. We recognize that, the post and hope where we, post a syllabus or we post assignments and sort of hope that students work through them. That certainly was where we saw some lack of success in the spring, and we're working to address that. So it is, active engagement, as you alluded to, Frank. That's really the key. And we all, and I agree with my colleagues, we all want to be back in. We want to be back in really every day. But while we can't be, let's make sure we're at least engaging in these types of, virtual meetings, as opposed to just hoping students are able to work through assignments.
And Steve, we've got folks on here asking, as to be expected, because we have extracurricular activities. In this case, we're talking about sports.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is a fluid situation, but what do we have in mind as it pertains to sports? What is the game plan?
Well, our conference is meeting. We've met this morning. We'll meet again on Thursday, trying to make some decisions. But I think one document from the Ohio High School Athletic Association best sums up at least my personal feelings. It's talking about football, and it says, for example, that the captains will come out for the coin flip. They will stay 6 feet apart. They will not shake hands. So all these rules about social distancing and social distancing on the sideline. And then 4 minutes later, we're going to be engaged in tackle football.
Right. The ultimate contact sport.
Right. And it's not the only sport, but there are, and the biggest problem I see with it is we are just unlike the NBA, we're not in a bubble. And even you can see the problems Major League Baseball is having, and that's $1 million athletes with $1 million budgets and multiple testing. We don't have the resources to really, in my view, keep our athletes safe. So, we would have liked to have had guidance. I think I could speak for every superintendent. We would have liked to have some guidance from the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One of the things I find most interesting about this pandemic, the state and federal government tells us what reading level a third grader has to be promoted to fourth grade. They tell us when to take end of course exams and what the questions will be. They tell us the sequence of classes, that none of that is under local control. But when we're in the midst of a global pandemic, then all of a sudden everything should be under local control. And I'll let you be the judge of why that is. But we would like to receive some guidance from the Ohio High School Athletic Association. But we start 2-a-days in a week. And we run into a lot of problems. And I think those very difficult decisions are going to be made at the superintendent level, which is going to result in a very disjointed looking approach to everything.
No uniformed approach here. Eric, your thoughts on that situation regarding sports for CMSD?
Well, we have made the difficult decision that while we're in remote learning, we also will not have our extracurricular programming, including sports and other extracurriculars as well. I would add to what my colleagues have said, what Steve said, is that not only did we not get guidance, there are so many conflicting pieces of guidance. And so we get questions about, well, how come you can have 300 people in a banquet, but you can't have a graduation ceremony? And while my community strongly supports the need to begin remotely for safety, that safety gets less convenient when we're not allowed to play football or volleyball or other things. And to Steve's point, there's great social distancing rules until the game starts, and then there are none. And we are seeing nationally that colleges and pro sports are struggling with this at higher degrees than anybody is asking high school athletes and their coaches to protect themselves for. So we have advocated that there be some kind of a delay, that we consider, like other states, moving the fall season to spring. We'll keep doing those kinds of things. But for now, my community is 86% minority. COVID has afflicted the minority community 4 times as greatly as the white community. My families are essential workers, sometimes with more than one essential job. And the health disparities in my community, including my kids, are great. I just can't take the risk of saying, well, we can take these more risky behaviors than even sitting in a classroom by playing sports, or, band where you're blowing into an instrument, or choir where you're projecting your voice. Those things are things that we're going to have to sacrifice in the short term.
No doubt a disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities. The numbers show that. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question right here. It was a Facebook question from Esti Marie. She says, can we talk about special education services? And she emphasized, saying it'll be a case-by-case conversation is not sufficient. Families need to know that their services will be delivered. Kathy, what do we make of that? How are we adhering to those special needs?
Sure. In our school district, students in preschool through grade 6 will be on campus 5 days a week. And students in grades 7 through 12 are here every other day of the week, with the exception of our low incidence students. Our students with the most challenging disabilities, they will be on campus 5 days a week, regardless of what grade band they happen to fall in. When we were closed last quarter of the last school year, we all recognize that our students with disabilities, our ELL population, and to some degree our gifted population really struggled in that virtual environment. And so we were committed here in our school district to ensure that our students, in this case, the students with disabilities, especially those who have the most challenging disabilities, will have the opportunity to work closely with our teaching staff and the auxiliary services so that they can meet their IEP goals. It is a goal of our school district to ensure that under these pandemic conditions, that those students' needs as defined in their IEPs will be met.
I want to share this with you all. This is from Holly Jean. Okay, I want to share this with you all because we are talking about all the work that you all are doing right now, and you signed up for this, and you care about your students and your staff. So we want to make sure we pass along the good comments as well. Okay, so Holly says, my thoughts are with all the superintendents. What a stressful time to be leading a school district and making such possibly life-changing decisions. It's not easy. Thank you for all you do. I wanted to give that shout out from Holly there.
Thank you, Mom. I appreciate you.
Mama put that on Facebook under that name. Huh? Well, I wanted to ask you all, and this is for each of you. How ambivalent have you been about some of these decisions? It's got to be difficult.
If I can, and I don't mean to completely echo what Steve said, but it's been very frustrating to not have more guidance from the state level. I mean, you have 4 superintendents, and I know we have different demographics to some degree, but certainly we're all in Northeast Ohio, and 4 very different plans, based upon many different factors. And now, as Steve alluded to, now we're coming together as conferences to try to decide: do we want to be the bad guy? Should we let somebody else be the bad guy? But yeah, does football really make sense? Can we say you're only going to be in school 2 days a week, but then, by the way, football practice starts at 2:30 every day, and as long as we don't shake hands before the game or after the game, we're going to be just fine blocking and tackling for 60 minutes. So I think we've done the best we can in a difficult situation, working with our teams, working with our teachers unions, working with our classified unions. These are very important players. We have to have our people at the table, making sure that they feel safe as well. Teacher morale is important. Staff morale is important. We need them to feel safe so that they can be at their maximum capacity for our students as well. So it's really been, a lot of different factors that we've had to try to put together. But, two factors continue to unite us. A, have to be as safe as possible. And secondly, let's deliver instruction as engaging as we possibly can.
Now, we know Governor DeWine had to slash some of the money that was going to education because of this pandemic that we're discussing right now. And that leads me to my next question, because Chase McCullough on Facebook asked, did this force any layoffs of faculty and staff, I should say, any layoffs in that regard in your district because of the changes that we're having to implement at this time?
Well, thankfully, in our case, the answer is no. And honestly, when we're taking a look at providing these new opportunities, it takes all hands on deck to make sure that all students' needs are met. So in Twinsburg, as of today, thankfully, we haven't had to reduce in staff any of our employees. Obviously, as we get underway, if we were forced to go to remote teaching and learning for a long period of time, then potentially some of our classified members of our staff would have that impact. We're just hoping everybody does what they need to do, and we can continue to remain open and continue to provide as safe of an environment as we can with a really talented staff that we're very blessed with here in our school community.
Eric, I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would just say the same thing, that fortunately for now, we have not made any reductions in force. We probably should have under regular circumstances, but our community needs us now more than ever. And that's every member of my educator team, all the way from my security and my food service to the classroom teacher to the principal. Our 9 labor unions have really risen to the occasion. They have committed to being flexible, that will keep people in pay status, but we'll all pitch into a greater good. And, you know, we have a levy that expires in December. We have to be on the ballot. But with the community's continued support, we plan to keep people in pay status and support our kids and families when they need us now more than ever.
You know, I spoke with a teacher actually just yesterday about some of the plans in her district. I asked about the whole grading process. She's a math instructor and actually puts in time off the clock trying to help her students. And that's kind of how I got to the whole point of being up close and personal with the students so that they know that their teacher loves and cares about them. Having said that, she said that the grading process is what it is, but she's having to make a change on the fly. It's not so much, this is your grade, this is what you received, but more of a, I don't want to say loose. I don't know if I can find the correct word to, but you all are nodding your head in agreement here, because it's more about, do you understand the concept as opposed to this is your grade, because we can't be in person the way we once were. Is that something that is being heavily discussed by teachers in your district, Steve?
It is. I think we all experienced in March going online so quickly with a couple of days notice, a weekend and one day to prepare. And so when you think of it in that context, the fact that our teachers were able to move to an online situation, deliver instruction, we handed out thousands of Chromebooks, hotspots to a lot of our families who otherwise wouldn't have been able to engage in the curriculum. But we were at that point, I don't know if I would use the word loose, I guess I would use the word very flexible with our at that point, just simply because of the nature of switching so suddenly. But now that we've had better time to prepare, we're moving to a student management system called Schoology, and Schoology should probably, they should pay for this commercial, but it's a great online platform. It interfaces with PowerSchool, which is our grading system, our attendance system. So we've created some guidelines for our teachers and for our students in terms of expectations for our students that are going to start online. And ultimately, in my opinion, I think we'll all be online. I'm with Kathy. I hope it doesn't happen, but I believe it probably will. So we need to be prepared. And this time, there has to be a higher standard of expectations. The remote learning has to be more robust. It has to be more engaging, which is one of your questions that you kind of alluded to earlier, Frank. I think all those things we have to be better at what we did than what we did in the spring. We did a great job in the spring under those circumstances, but these circumstances are different. We know it's coming. We've had time to prepare. We've delayed the start of school for 2 weeks so that we can bring our teachers in and train them on Schoology. So all of our teachers, not just our remote teachers, but all teachers, with the idea that inevitably we'll all be online.
Oh, give it to me, Eric. You're nodding in agreement. It feels like you have an amen in there that you want to throw in.
Well, we're doing the same thing. We're using Schoology also. It also interacts with our student attendance and grading system. We are delaying the start for our students so that we have ample time for teacher training. fortunately, we've spent a decade trying to move toward mastery-based learning anyway, where schools and students are expected to get a grade when they've completed it to a satisfactory level. So we were more flexible last spring because of the emergency, like the urgent emergency. We're still in an emergency, but we knew that we were going to be here, and we've been preparing to have a much more formalized schooling experience, whether we were in hybrid or now that we know we'll be in remote.
Tell me this, because I know whether you have a hybrid model or whether you're all in with, staying at home. What are plans? Because you have plenty of them right now. What are the plans for a situation should a student or a faculty member get sick? And that's for each of you.
I can take that. We've actually had several athletes in the last couple of days, actually, from Valley Forge, one of our high schools, come down with COVID. So we've already really lived this. We are following, the 3C model. The first C is call the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, and I really have to make sure that I thank them, very publicly. They have been nothing short of heroic. So many times when you call it bureaucracy, you kind of get bounced from place to place. They are personal. They are specific to your case. They're patient with us, so we get as much specific guidance as we can from them for that case. Certainly, we clean. In our cases, both of these were athletes who had not entered buildings. The practices or skills training sessions had been outside the schools and parks. But then thirdly, we communicate with our families, and we communicate as early and as often as possible. We want to make sure that we are the ones providing this information, that we don't go into a situation where rumors take hold. Any positive case, we're making sure we provide as much information to our families as possible so that they can make educated decisions with their children.
Kathy, you want to tackle that one too?
Yes, in different county here, we're under the umbrella of the Summit County Public Health Department, and just like Charlie just said with Cuyahoga County, the Summit County public health officials, especially Commissioner Donna Skoda and Environmental Commissioner Tanya Burford, have really been great partners with the Summit County school districts. This week, they released a decision tree that will help provide guidance should we have a situation occur here in our school district. Thankfully, we haven't had any situations with any of our athletes. They've been on campus since June. And for every one of our sports, and now for our marching band as well, the county office has approved individual plans. We're now in phase 3 of athletics and phase 2 of our marching band. So we're working very closely with Summit County folks, and they have been responsive. They have been patient with us with our many questions, and we're just grateful for all of their help too.
Are we providing PPE for students? How does that work?
We are in Parma. We're providing face shields for our kindergarten and first grade students. We know that those are less recommended by our experts, but they're also highly thought of, at least by the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. And we're talking about ages, kindergarten and first grade anyway, which was below that 10-year-old threshold. For our students who are in second grade and above, we're providing the pullover shields that are actually Parma City Schools will plug for the district. Certainly, if they want to wear something different, they can. We're also going to have that, that's obviously reusable, but we're going to have disposable masks everywhere. Our bus drivers will have them. So, students getting on the bus without a mask, they're putting on a mask as soon as they enter. It's clearly important, from the governor's comments, but also from everything we've read in the science, to make sure that all of us are masked really at all times in our schools.
How's PPE working out there for you, Eric?
We're buying it by the thousands and thousands. We also, when we're in our hybrid experience, all of our educators, any of our guests, and all of our students will be either masked or face shielded. We will be providing disposable masks for our students so that we know that they're routinely clean. So we are planning for 2 masks per day per student. We'll be providing cloth masks for all of our educators, and then for our school nurses and other high contact, we'll provide additional protection as well. And then also obviously buying sanitizer pumps for every one of our classrooms in all 100 buildings, sanitizer wipes so students can help wipe down their own spaces, and lots of signage and redesign of our building structures to create social distancing as well. We do expect to get back to a hybrid experience someday soon. And so we're working hard to have all of that in place and frankly have the stock for a district that serves 37,000 children. We need to be buying and getting ready for that now, even though we're starting remotely.
Kathy, this is a way of life now. So PPE, how's that working out for you?
It's similarly, lots and lots of hand sanitizer here. We have provided pumps for each of the classrooms and all of the places that large groups have to pass through, like in our commons at the high school building where students would enter and exit. We have provided thermometers for all of our head coaches, buildings and such. In our district, we're asking our parents to provide the face masks just because of the comfort and face masks. You have to feel comfortable wearing the face mask that you're in. And so that's going to become part of our school supply request. Of course, we will have face masks here, the disposable kind that students and staff may use in the event that they don't have one of their own at school. We're providing face shields to the teaching staff, especially those teachers who are working with our children where they're learning to read, or they're working in our intervention classrooms where students need to see a teacher's mouth as she's instructing them. So those things are provided as well. Electrostatic sprayers, thankfully, during last school year with the outbreak of the flu, we got on the front end of that. And so that is something that we purchased early on. And that includes electrostatic sprayers for our buses. Those buses will be sanitized between bus routes. Our buses will also have pumps with the hand sanitizer on. And in our district, we will only be transporting one child per seat on the bus. And so unless there's a sibling. So we've limited the number of children on each of our school buses in hopeful attempts to make sure that social distancing occurs on our fleet as well as in our classrooms.
You know what? I want to ask each of you this question here. What are the upsides? A lot has come out that maybe we say we could streamline this or we need more of that. What are the positives that have come out of this for each of you that you've been able to say, I'm going to build upon this?
I can start. I think that this has really reinforced the importance of relationships between teachers and students. And again, it's obviously better if we're in person, but we know that there's some challenges to that and some limitations moving through, COVID. But our parents, really lauded the teachers that were so active this spring and engaging, and even though it was fully virtual, their children still felt that connection to teachers. This has really reinforced how important public school teachers are, and I think that really has been a trend in the other way for too long, certainly a couple decades, where it has been a less respected profession. I'm proud of the work that our teachers have done. I think they've worked extremely hard. And I think our parents have recognized that yes, there might be some content that we can help our children with, but we can't help them with the pedagogy. We struggle to help them with the motivation, and that relationship between a teacher and student is really irreplaceable.
Steve, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think one of the changes probably for public education in perpetuity is that online experience will most likely remain, certainly in Willoughby Eastlake and probably in other districts, remain an option for parents moving forward. So, as I stated earlier, we have about 2,400 of our students online now. So we've certainly become more adept at being online. It's another tool in our teachers' tool bag that I think will help them be better instructors. So that is certainly a piece that that we have that has been a silver lining to this gray cloud. And additionally, our staff took the initiative and really worked very, very hard. And we fed our students on free and reduced lunch across the community and others as well, really since the inception, and have continued that all summer. And that's really been through the efforts and work of our staff. And as Charlie said, I'm very proud of what they've done and what we've been able to accomplish. And I think in some ways it has brought the community and the school and staff closer than they were prior to COVID. So there has been some positive things that have come from it, and I think some sustained positive results.
Kathy, keep us smiling about the positive results. What have you found?
Well, you know what? It's all about innovation and looking at things in new and unique ways. We had started a Chromebook initiative, a rollout 3 years ago here in our district, and the school closure has caused us to now have one-to-one all the way down to preschool, and that's this coming school year. And so with that, with the being able to harness the power of technology, our teachers are looking at ways to teach lessons that they might have taught the same way forever. And now they're looking at ways to harness technology and to push forward into the 21st century. Blended learning is a huge effort here in our school district, thanks to the support of our Board of Education and the community. And we just are so excited about doing things differently and actually learning. Our staff is actually learning some things from our students. So it's been a great effort, and we look forward to continuing on with this innovative path that we've started.
And Eric, are the students hollering back at you? They'll tell you what they need now.
Well, so I got to talk to my student advisory committee the other day, and true to form, kids are rising to the occasion. I would say, in addition to what my colleagues have shared, the two additional things I would say, one is it continues to allow us to move toward mastery of content and personalized learning experiences being the primary driver of education, as opposed to seat time and Carnegie units and clock hours. That we're really spending more time focusing on whether kids actually learn concepts, which is what we are supposed to do as educators. And then in a much more practical one for me is, like it or not, this has made the just fierce inequities that children in all of our districts face compared to their peers very, very visible. And so, for example, it's allowing me to drive a really strong charge here in Cleveland to close the digital divide, where 40% of my families don't even have access to high-speed, reliable internet. When we're done with this, if we have our way, it will be a public utility in the city, not a luxury, and that will be a positive.
That is a heck of an initiative. And you know what? This is the final thing that I want to leave everyone with, because Charles brought this up earlier. He brought up morale. Normally, I ask everyone how they're doing, but I knew we had a lot of things to get to. So on the back end, are y'all doing okay? I got a thumbs up from Eric. Steve, how you holding up?
I think we're all doing the best that we can, but there have been some sleepless nights and some stressful times, and there's probably a person or two or three or five that are around me that might say he's a little more irritable than normal, but I'm trying to do the best that I can, and generally we're coping well, and we have a lot of support. So in general, I feel like I'm personally doing okay, but I'd be remiss to say it hasn't been difficult at times.
Kathy, you good?
There's no playbook, and none of us had any courses in graduate school about running a school district during a pandemic. But I do want to say that our network, our professional networks, the superintendents from all of the local school districts, we are on the phone with each other. We're calling each other. And then beyond that, just our staff members and our parents have been great, very understanding. They're worried. We're all worried, but we're all working to make sure that we don't put students or staff in unnecessary risk. And it does cause a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of worry here. But like my colleagues are saying, we're banding together. We're doing the best we can. We ask for grace and flexibility from our families and our staff. And likewise, they ask that of us. And I think together we're going to be fine, just day by day, step by step, and holding on to each other. And we will get through this just fine.
Step by step. Charlie, are they okay for you?
Similar to everyone else, we've tried to set the mindset, and this is something we talked about with our leadership team very early in this process. Perfection is impossible. Compassion is mandatory. And I think provided that we continue to work through that and show that not only toward each other, but also toward our families, we have to recognize that, our families are going through many different hardships. I mean, we all have a wide socioeconomic gap between, the haves and maybe the struggling to haves in our school districts. And we have to recognize that. And provided that we continue to show creativity, we continue to communicate, and we continue to be compassionate, I think that we can weather this too.
Eric, we're all good, right?
You know, we are right now facing the single longest, hardest snow day decision any of us have ever made. So I guess we've been training for this for a while. You know, like everyone said, it's tough. You know, I used to say to people all the time when they say, "Oh, you have a tough job," I said, "I knew what I signed on for. I didn't know I signed on for the fun." But I will also tell you, in the many ways that students and parents and educators and community members have just reached out and said, really appreciate you, thank you. Those little kindnesses, people are remembering to be kind, and that's really been helpful. And that's why I'm going to get through it with my COVID-19 extra pounds, but I'm going to get through it.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, we have plenty of back to school resources for parents on our News 5 app. Just head to the rebound section. Also, for tough conversations like this, you can find it on A Frank Conversation. That is my podcast. And we will have some snippets of these conversations from teachers and educators, I should say, all over the place. And you know what? I'll leave you with this. A great educator, a great leader once told me, compassion, not perfection. Thanks so much, guys, for your time.
Yeah.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thanks for